Companies Act Section 49 calls on shares of the same class to be made on a uniform basis. Section 49 of the Companies Act outlines the principles governing the process of making calls for further share capital from shareholders. This section ensures that any such calls are applied equitably and consistently across all shares within the same class, ensuring fairness in capital contributions. Below is a detailed explanation of the key provisions and implications of this section. 1. Uniform calls on shares within the same class. Meaning of calls on shares. A call on shares occurs when a company that has issued shares requests shareholders to pay additional amounts towards the unpaid portion of their shares. Typically, companies may issue shares on the condition that only part of their value is paid initially, and the remaining amount is paid in installments as decided by the company's board. Each installment is referred to as a call. Requirement of uniformity. When a company makes a call for further capital from shareholders holding shares within the same class, such calls must be made uniformly across all shares in that class. This means that all shareholders holding shares within the same class must receive the same call for the same amount, proportionate to the unpaid value of their shares. No shareholder within the class can be asked to pay a different amount than others. The purpose of this rule is to ensure fairness and prevent favoritism or discrimination among shareholders who hold shares of the same class. 2. Explanation of same class for uniform calls. Concept of share classes. Shares in a company are often divided into different classes, such as equity shares and preference shares, each class having specific rights regarding voting, dividends, and capital repayment. However, even within a particular class, such as equity shares, there could be variations in terms of how much capital has been paid up by different shareholders. Impact of uneven paid-up capital. The section includes an important clarification to distinguish which shares fall within the same class for the purpose of uniform calls. Shares with the same nominal value but on which different amounts have been paid up are not considered to be in the same class. For example, if two shareholders hold equity shares with a nominal value of 100 rupees each, but one has paid 50 rupee while the other has paid 75 rupees, these shares will not be regarded as belonging to the same class for the purposes of calls. This distinction is necessary to ensure equitable treatment. Shareholders who have already paid a higher amount toward their shares should not be treated the same as those who have paid less when further calls are made. 3. Practical implications for companies and shareholders. Fairness and consistency. The requirement of uniform calls across all shares within the same class ensures that no individual shareholder is unfairly burdened with a higher capital call than others holding the same type of shares. It reflects the principle of equality among members, promoting transparency in capital management. Corporate governance. Companies must ensure that their board resolutions and calls for unpaid capital align with this section's requirements. Failing to apply calls uniformly within the same class could lead to disputes among shareholders or regulatory scrutiny. Impact on record keeping. The company must maintain detailed records regarding the amount paid up on each share. This ensures that the company can accurately determine which shares belong to the same class and apply calls appropriately. Proper record keeping also helps prevent confusion when issuing calls and ensures compliance with the section's requirements. 4 examples to illustrate the provision. Scenario 1. Uniform calls within the same class. Suppose a company issues 1,000 equity shares, each with a nominal value of 100 rupees, and initially collects 50 rupee per share. Later, the company makes a call for 25 rupee per share to meet its capital needs. Since all the shares in this class have the same nominal value and the same amount of 50 rupees has been paid up, the company must make the call for 25 rupees uniformly on all 1000 shares. In this case, all shareholders holding these shares will receive the same call and must pay the same additional amount. Scenario 2. Shares with different paid-up amounts. Consider another situation where a company issues 1000 equity shares with a nominal value of 100 rupees each, but some shareholders have paid 50 rupee per share while others have paid 75 rupees. In this scenario, the company cannot treat all 1000 shares as belonging to the same class when making a call for additional capital. The shares with different amounts paid up will be considered separate classes for the purpose of calls. The company may make different calls for these two sets of shares, ensuring that shareholders with a higher paid-up amount are not unfairly burdened.